Hey there guys, it's Natural Nadine here and I'm back with another video. Quick disclaimer, use my hair that is painfully greasy. I just oiled my ends. I haven't used dry shampoo in ages. I know it's greasy. Let's not be white women about it, okay? In today's video, we're going to be talking about how often you should do certain things. Now, what I mean by that is that I'm always constantly getting comments about how often should I do scalp massages, how often should I use protein, how often should I use Olaplex, and all types of questions like that. So in today's video, I thought I would address a few common questions I always get about how often you should do certain things, why you should do those things in that frequency, and how it can benefit your hair. So without me rambling on, guys, let's get into the video. So the first one, guys, is how often should you do scalp massages? Now, if you're not going to be using any oils, then there's no harm in doing scalp massages often. You can do them every single day if you want to, because you're not adding any extra product to your scalp. What you're doing is just stimulating that blood flow and getting that circulation going, and it's therapeutic to some people. However, for the most part, when people ask this question, they mean using things like essential oils, doing scalp massages with like rosemary oil, peppermint oil, that type of thing, to enhance and stimulate that hair growth. My personal opinion is that this does not need to be done that frequently as you think. I would start by doing this once a week. You can do it twice and up to 3 times a week if you are somebody who cleanses your hair often. So this is also depends on how often you wash your hair. So if you are curly hair natural and you wash your hair more often, maybe like once every week to 10 days, then you can get away with doing scalp massages with an essential oil 2 to 3 times a week, because you know that scalp is going to be getting a cleanse very, very soon. If you're somebody who is a straight hair natural, or you're wearing your hair straight, you don't want to get buildup, you don't want to get grease, like me, and you're stretching your hair for maybe 3, 4, even, I don't even know how many weeks people are going nowadays without a wash day. It's scary. But if you are one of those people and you're stretching your hair for a long amount of time, you want to limit the amount of essential oils and oils that you're adding to your scalp, because let's not forget, guys, our scalp produces its own oils. Sometimes it doesn't need that extra help, and especially if you suffer from some scalp issues such as dermatitis, I would avoid overdoing it with the scalp massages and scalp oiling. I know it's all the rage right now. Another key as well to when you're doing scalp massages is you want to make sure that you're using a little bit of oil. Don't overdo it, okay? The next question I always get is how often should I use protein? Answer is always use protein often. All the time, as often as you can in your natural hair routine. And this always shocks a lot of people, because the first question or the first response I always get is, oh, my hair doesn't like protein. My hair is protein sensitive. And my answer to that is always, your hair likes protein. Everybody's hair likes protein, okay? Hair is protein. It does not make sense for your hair to not like protein, because it's literally made up of protein. The reason why a lot of people think their hair doesn't like protein is because they're using the wrong types of protein for their hair. So in order for me to kind of explain why everybody should use protein more effectively, we need to understand how they work. So the first thing that I want to mention is, like I've previously mentioned, our hair is protein. It is made up of protein. Proteins is how we help to strengthen our hair, how we help to maintain and keep its structure, how we help to promote its elasticity. So protein is such a vital part of your hair routine, and you don't want to be skipping out on using protein regularly. I went through a phase where I wasn't using protein regularly when I was in my curly natural hair phase and stuff like that, fearing protein overload and protein sensitivity, and all that hindered was my length retention. So if you want to retain length, be using that protein. In terms of how proteins work, then, first thing that we need to know about proteins is that they love to form chains, okay? They love to be in a gang, they love to link onto each other, they go together. When your hair has a little bit of damage, you will lose protein. So let's say when you're brushing your hair, you might break off some cuticle scales. When you are using heat on your hair, all of this can result in losing bits of protein here and there. And what you're doing when you apply a product with protein is temporarily, emphasis on the temporarily, replenishing that protein within your hair that has been lost. When you apply protein to your hair, it just settles in. Any gaps in your cuticle layer, it will make itself at home there. any kind of breakage in terms of lack of protein, it will find a chain, and that happens as well as it penetrates your hair, but more so happens on the surface of your hair. Now, a lot of people sometimes struggle with protein sensitivity. They struggle with their hair getting stiff, dry, and brittle because they have used protein in their hair. What a lot of people don't understand is the type of protein you use can really impact how protein sensitive you get, which then we also need to start understanding the different sizes of proteins. You have high molecular weight proteins, then you have low molecular weight proteins. The high molecular weight proteins are proteins such as keratin and other proteins that are found in really, really strong treatments, such as the Apogee two-step protein treatment, or the Answer keratin treatment, or the Avalon texture release. These are large keratin molecules. And then you have low molecular weight proteins, such as ones found in the Shea Moisture Curl and Shine range that has silk proteins, such as the one found in the L'Adore LPP hair treatment. You can imagine that the larger proteins coat the hair strand a lot more because they are larger. And that's exactly why you can't use protein treatments such as Apogee and keratin treatments more often, because you will end up with that brittle, dry feeling because your hair will be absolutely coated in protein. So instead, what you want to do is use smaller proteins, lower molecular weight proteins such as silk proteins, these other products that I mentioned, that are going to help to replenish the protein in your hair, but because they're smaller, they don't overload your hair in the same way that high molecular weight proteins would. I hope what I'm saying is making sense. So when it comes to protein, use proteins often, but depending on which proteins you are using, depends on how often you should use them. The low molecular weight proteins, you can get away with using them every single wash day and not experience a high amount of protein overload or protein sensitivity. Things like the Apogee two-step protein treatment, you don't want to be doing that every other week or even that frequently because of the strength of this protein and because it has these heavyweight proteins that are really going to coat your hair strand. So imagine your hair is like really, really flexible. You've got these cuticle layers and gaps. Now imagine those cuticle gaps are filled with protein. There's now protein in the middle of these cuticle gaps because that's how protein works. It fills the gaps between your cuticle layer. What was once more flowy is now more rigid. And because it's more rigid, it will still flow, but because it's more rigid, it's definitely going to be more prone to breakage, which is exactly why you feel that protein overload and protein sensitivity. Whew, that one was kind of a long answer because I had to really, really explain this one, because people, I find a lot of natural users are scared of proteins. Don't be scared of proteins, okay? Embrace it, love it. Your hair is protein. Make sure you are replenishing that protein in your hair if you want to retain and grow your hair. Next one, how often should I use Olaplex? Now, guys, this is really controversial. This is actually a very, very controversial video. Let me explain to you guys a bit about how Olaplex works. Here we go again. Now, Olaplex contains a patented ingredient. I call it BAD because I can't be asked to pronounce the entire name. That thing is long, okay? And what BAD does is, like, again, when you have damage in your hair from heat, styling, chemicals, whatever, you have bonds in your hair that break. And what Olaplex's patented ingredient BAD does is it goes in and it replenishes those bonds. It fixes those bonds. Because the ingredient BAD works by bonding to broken bonds, there's Olaplex state that there's no way that you can overload your hair with bonding, because it can only bond to the bonds that are already in your hair. It doesn't go and start creating its own new bonds. So if the bond builder has managed to penetrate work, find a place to bond, and you rinse it out, whatever excess hasn't bonded will be rinsed out with the rinse out. So with that information is why Olaplex have said they can recommend that this product is used regularly. Even on their directions on the shampoo, some of their products even say daily use. My personal favorite product is the Olaplex number 0. I literally don't go without it. I use it every single wash day. So I think with Olaplex, it's one of those situations where you do have to gauge what your hair likes, because we all know that Olaplex has been under some controversy recently, where they have had issues with a lawsuit due to people using their products and experiencing breakage and bad side effects from their products. So I do obviously have to give that disclaimer that address Olaplex with caution. But from my personal experience, I have used it every single wash day for like 2 years now. and I've never experienced any of the symptoms. Or the only other caveat I would say with that is that I only use one, maybe two products of Olaplex. If you're using the entire range, that might be a completely different story. I've tried the entire Olaplex range. I found the products that I like the most, and I literally only reached for number 0, number 8, and number 3. Oh, and number 7. But number 7 is an oil. So guys, I'm really going to wrap this video up here. There's going to be a part 2 of this video coming out, which is going to detail the other half of things that I always get asked frequently on: how often should I? Because I feel like I've done a lot of explaining, but it was really information that I feel like you needed to know to understand why I've come up with the conclusion on how often you should do certain things. So I'm not going to ramble on and keep rambling on and taking your time, but stay tuned for part 2 of this video. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.